Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nellie and I love, love, love to read. I also have recently been loving audiobooks. That's been something new this year that I've started. I used to just not think the audiobooks were for me. I could just not really focus on what I was listening to. But starting at the beginning of this year, I started getting into audiobooks more and now I absolutely love them. As I've been looking back on all the books that I've read this year, I've also been thinking about the books I listened to on audio. Some were really good, some were really bad, and I do really feel like, depending on how well you connect with the narrator or how much you like their voice, how well they do inflections or different voices, it really does impact your reading experience. I have had some books that I've listened to that I've just had to turn off the audiobook and just read, and I had so much of a better experience, and vice versa. I've had, for the most part, better experiences with audiobooks even than physical books. So I thought it would be kind of fun to just talk to you guys about the 10 best audiobooks I've listened to this year. I've definitely listened to probably over double that in this entire year, and I've just found some new favorites that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about. So starting off with number 10, I first want to mention just this tip. I have noticed that if I'm going into a new genre of book that I'm not normally well versed in, it's not my go-to genre, or I've never read anything like it before, I really feel like audiobooks have been really helpful to me for just taking that first step into a genre. I've done it a lot with nonfiction. I do love to listen to nonfiction in an audiobook format. But this year specifically, I read my first sci-fi book maybe ever, I think, and that was The Blighted Stars by Megan E. O'Keefe. This story is so interesting and I never hear anybody talking about it. The only person I've heard talking about this book is from one of my favorite bookish podcasts to listen to, which is What She's Reading. And one of the girls on that podcast mentioned this book and explained it, and I was so intrigued by it. First, I'm going to tell you guys about what the book is about and then what I loved about the audiobook. So for this book, it is totally, I feel like it's so far outside of what I would normally pick up, but you guys, it's so incredible. The way I would describe this book is it's basically like an enemies to lovers in space. Just to set up this world, we basically have this dystopian future space world where humans are having to search for viable planets. And another thing that's really interesting in this world is that humanity has figured out how to essentially cheat death by downloading your consciousness and reprinting you into a new body. So think of it like 3D printing. You could 3D print yourself into a new body if you're getting too old, if you get injured, if something happens. And there's always some type of a backup to your consciousness if something happens and they are not able to get to you right in that moment. So it's really, really interesting, a very interesting premise. What I loved about it, for me, I felt like this was a good bridge to sci-fi for somebody like me who enjoys fantasy and who loves like a good romantic subplot, who loves enemies to lovers, and who loves yearning. This book had all of those for me. So our two main characters are first Nara Sharp. She was basically a bodyguard for this really prominent, I would say, like merchant family who kind of either invented or has a monopoly on this reprinting process. She was the bodyguard for the father, the head of this empire. And while there, she allegedly learned some things and accuses this family and this reprinting process of being the reason why a lot of viable planets are dying. Now, the son of the head of this family that obviously she was a bodyguard for the father, he is kind of like a science nerd. Obviously, we're in a sci-fi world, but he is really, really smart and he has been the brains behind a lot of the reprinting process. And he is very adamant and vehement about how their process is clean and is not hurting planets. Due to a drastic turn of events, Nara Sharp ends up being reprinted into the body of the son's bodyguard, and nobody knows that she is there, and so she's having to act as though she is his bodyguard, and they become stranded on a dead planet with a few other people. She doesn't know who to trust. Things are revealed as they are trying to survive on this dying planet, and this really beautiful love story forms between the two of them that I just became so obsessed with. I had to know what was happening next. I guess this is very ignorant of me, but I didn't realize that sci-fi could have such beautiful love stories. Since then, I have read other really good sci-fi novels that have obviously proved different to me, and I really appreciate that. But this book was so good. Even though I was intrigued to read it, because it was a new genre, it was really hard for me to take the jump and to pick this big chunky book up, especially knowing that it's a trilogy. However, I did end up picking this for one of my TBRs, and I just thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to download the book on Audible. I ended up listening to it there. And this book is actually narrated by somebody named, I think it's Kieran Seward. And obviously that is a male name. This person is a male narrator, and yet he narrates the entire book, even though it is told in different perspectives between Tarquin, who's our male main character, and this AI that is the spaceship, which is so interesting. Normally, I really do not like when female perspectives are narrated by men. I cannot tell you what it is about this man's voice, but he did such a great job. I was not bothered at all by the fact that he did all of the voices. He also did varying accents. I believe for our female main character, she had an American accent, and I felt like it really helped me to distinguish who was who, and he kept that up throughout the series. He was voicing obviously a bunch of different people, and between the accents and the different tones and inflections that he did for the different voices, specifically with the AI character that was on the spaceship, it was so interesting to me. I absolutely loved it. I really feel like it is the reason why I end up devouring this huge, like 600, 500 page book in like a day, honestly. It was so good. There was also a creepier element with some type of creature that is on this dying planet that they're on, or these multiple types of creatures, and he did the voices so well for that. It was eerie. It raised the hair on the back of my neck, but I just absolutely loved this book. Again, I think it would be really good if you've been wanting to get into sci-fi, or if this premise intrigued you but sci-fi is not your genre. I really feel like the audiobook could help you get into this. Okay, for number 9, I actually have a book that, it's so funny because I rated this to 3.75 stars, but as far as the voices on the audio, I would give it 5 stars because the narrators just did so good. And that is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So just to describe this book to you, obviously if you've been living under a rock, because I feel like everybody has read Quicksilver at this point, and Brimstone just came out this month. I actually think it came out yesterday as I'm filming it today on November 19th. So this book is essentially about a human world, this human kingdom. The people are really living in oppression. Like, it is not very well run at all. And we have our female main character, Ceres, who is just trying to keep her troublemaking brother out of trouble, and she is also I want to say like a blacksmith or something. She works with metal. Anyway, she ends up getting into an altercation that brings her in front of the queen while she's in the palace. She ends up almost dying, and this all happens within like the first few chapters, so this is not a spoiler. And she's next to essentially this pile of some type of liquid. This is so horrible the way that I'm describing it, but it ends up being a portal, and through that, this huge like fae warrior ends up coming out. She ends up going back with him into this portal, into the world that he's from, and from there on, this kind of adventure goes on from there. It's a really interesting world. There's fae, there's humans, there's other creatures as well. I don't want to spoil anything else, but very interesting, I do think. What I loved about this audiobook, 1000%, was the dual narration. I love that dual narration is becoming more of a thing. Obviously, we have dual narration and duet narration, where dual narration, we have POVs and the male main character's voice, and we're having the male narrator speak for them. And then we have duet narration, where it's pretty much all in one POV, which is the female's POV, but then we have the male narrator that anytime a man speaks, he is voicing that. And so Quicksilver is a duet narration, and I loved that. The narrators are Stella Bloom and Anthony Palmini, I think is how you say his name. They did such a good job, and I think specifically with the male narrator, he did such a good job at the different voices in here. We have like 3 really big main characters that will continue on through the series. As far as the male voices, they were so distinct, and I really appreciated that. I honestly was shocked that it was the same person that was voicing all 3 of those. It just kept me on the edge of my seat. I really felt like I was watching a movie or just like listening to it on my headphones. So if this is a book that you haven't read yet or you're wanting to reread it before you go into Brimstone, I honestly would recommend the audiobook. Number 8 is a book that I did rate 5 stars, and I do think some of it had to do with how amazing this audiobook was. This is also a dual narration. This is A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McEwen. Before I get ahead of myself, this series is so interesting. It was pitched to me like Peaky Blinders meets a fantasy world, and I am somebody who loves like the Peaky Blinders show. I've always thought it was so interesting. You've got like these, I want to say it's like Irish gangsters. I haven't watched the show in a long time. You're just seeing the setting of this like dark, almost gothic, it's almost got like this early 1900s feel to it as well. And I feel like that is how it felt listening to this audiobook and reading this book. In this book, we have our two characters who meet as children. In this world, children are brought to kind of like this city center where they are tested to see if they have magic. And if they have magic, they go to this academy. If they don't, they go back to just their common life, essentially. In the first few chapters, while our female main character and our male main character are there, they end up stumbling upon a secret. Now, with this huge secret, these two characters end up choosing different paths, and their paths divert from there, where the female main character goes to the academy and the male main character goes back home to work. But this secret is so groundbreaking, world-changing really, that it changes the course of their lives, and later on they end up crossing paths again. I don't want to spoil anything because I really think you should go in blind. This book is so good. The magic system is really cool. It's one of those series that I feel like, even though it's romantasy, I felt like the plot was equal to the storyline. And what I loved is that if you were a Peaky Blinders lover, listening to this audiobook felt like I was listening to the voices off of Peaky Blinders. The accents are so true to it, and I feel like with our male main character, his family is so true to kind of like the Tommy Shelby character in Peaky Blinders. He is the leader of his brothers, even though he's not necessarily the oldest. He's keeping them out of trouble. His family is almost like a gang, but they take care of the city that they're over. And then he has his mom, like this strong female main character that doesn't always agree with what he's doing, which really reminded me of Aunt Polly from Peaky Blinders. I just loved this. I loved this book. I thought it was so good, and the narration was amazing. This one is narrated by Billy Fulford and Joshua Riley, and again, this is a dual narration. Number 7 is a book that has taken, obviously, the world by storm this year, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I was a lover of Hunger Games growing up, not only the book series, but also the show, and so super excited to see more books come out in this series. I did not read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I know a lot of people said that we should read this book first, but I find it really hard to be in a villain's mindset that I know isn't going to be redeemable for me. Like, I don't want to sympathize with them if in the end I already know the choices they're going to make. I do think eventually I will probably listen to this book and listen to the story, but as far as Sunrise on the Reaping, I not only thought that this was just an incredible book. Obviously, we're getting Haymitch's story from his time when he had to go into the games, which we already knew this was going to be a tragedy, but it was so emotional. It was so beautiful. I loved being introduced to a new cast of characters, and I also loved that at the end, it brought us back to a flash forward of the world as we know it after the Hunger Games, and just seeing his relationship and having a cameo from Peeta and Katniss. I absolutely loved it. This book is narrated by Jefferson White, and he did such a good job. I was like, this is Haymitch. Literally, this is the voice of Haymitch. I was totally bought into it the entire time, and I feel like he did such a good job with this narration. A series that I love that is not talked about enough, I'm putting at number 6, and that is The Elements of Cadence. I am halfway through this duology. I listened to A River Enchanted earlier this year, and this one is on Hoopla, available for me. That's how I listened to it. First of all, Rebecca Ross is probably one of my favorite authors ever. I read Wild Reverence by her this year. I probably could have listened to that. I would be interested to reread that, but listening to it on audio, because I bet you it's really, really good. But with this story specifically, this world is so mystical, lush. It's like, picture a very, very lush island that is in the Scottish Isles, and we have these just two warring clans. And in this world, we have just elemental, almost fae spirits, I would say, fairy spirits that are very different from the fairies that we're reading about right now in romantasy. But this is very much more like I would say, folklore-esque, where we have these people who, if they're tilling the ground, they're praying to the earth spirits to help their crops grow, and the earth spirits answer. So obviously we have earth, air, water, and fire. And it's really, really interesting to see how these spirits really impact this people's prosperity, their daily life, what they believe in, just things like that. And what I loved about this story is, again, just you can tangibly feel this mystical, magical setting. You can see it in your mind because of the way that the story is told. It also contains multiple love stories in this that I think are just so sweet and so beautiful. Our main storyline that we're following is Jack. He was the bard for this clan. I think it's the East clan that we're following, I want to say. It's separated into the East and the West, and he's called back home because the laird, or the leader of his clan, requests him to come back. And with this people, there's always kind of needing to be a bard on the island because the way to communicate and to appease these fae spirits is through song. He comes back, and his childhood enemy of his is the daughter of the laird, and it turns out that she's the one who called him back. So they have this really complicated relationship, and the reason why he has been called back is because little girls are going missing, and they don't know if it's the fae spirits that are taking these girls or if it's the clan of the West. And so he is needed to communicate with these fae spirits. We're following the two of them and their love story, and we're also following kind of like the captain of the guard for this clan, and he was a single father and remarried and to the healer of this clan. And it's really interesting just following this mystery on this beautiful setting through the eyes of these four people. This story is narrated by Ruth Urquhart, and she did such an incredible job at telling this story. Listening to her voice was like listening to the characters on Outlander. Her accent is so beautiful, and it really just lends to the story. I think she did a really good job at switching between voices for both the male main characters and the female main characters, and it's just an audiobook that I love to recommend. At number 5 is one of my favorite books and stories of all time, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. There's so many good audiobooks for this, so many different versions. Obviously, this is a very well-loved story. I don't think I need to say much about this story because obviously everybody knows Elizabeth and Darcy, but specifically with this one, I listened to the Duke Classics version by Kate Kellgren, and I loved it. She did such a good job at doing different voices because there's a lot of female main characters in this story, right? Remember how Elizabeth has a lot of different sisters? She did such a good job at seamlessly transitioning because there's a lot of dialogue in this book, specifically when all the sisters are together. And in the book itself, when you're reading it, it's kind of difficult to see who's talking because it doesn't always say Elizabeth said or Lydia said. Like, it'll just go from sister to sister to sister. And this narrator did such a good job at understanding who was speaking. She would seamlessly transition into that sister's voice, and you automatically knew which sister it was because of the voice that she had dedicated to them. I had such a great time with this audiobook. I definitely want to listen to it again, and I definitely want to listen to Rosamund Pike's version of it because I know that she has a Pride and Prejudice narration. I think it's on Audible, and I bet you that would be so, so good. Hearing her voice, since obviously she played Jane in the, I think it's like 2005 movie. So that one is definitely on my bucket list, but I really, really enjoyed the one that I listened to. At number 4 is a new series that I've started this year, and I was so surprised at how much I loved it. At least this first book, which is the only book I've finished in the series so far, but that's Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This book is so intimidating to me because I've heard such mixed things about this series. I don't tend to like really toxic characters, and so the fact that I loved this series so much really speaks to Jessa Hastings' writing. She has this really beautiful, intimate, almost lyrical way of writing that specifically in her monologues for the characters that is so relatable even if you haven't been in that situation. She relates feelings to feelings that you felt before that really just puts you in the story. I really feel like this audiobook is what got me into the story and was why I ended up loving it and tagging it so much. This is a dual narration as well. We have Magnolia and BJ, who are two childhood best friends, turned to lovers, turned to almost like enemies, and then friends again. They live in high society London, so it really is almost like a London version of Gossip Girl, but if they weren't in school anymore, so a little bit more adult. And this book really questions, like, if soulmates are real, and would a soulmate really treat you a certain way, and could you still be made for that person if they're so extremely flawed and if they continue to hurt you? The voices for these characters are exactly the voices that would go with who I would picture based on how they are described in this story by Jessa Hastings herself. I feel like the female narrator for Magnolia, she just does a really good job at sounding posh and sounding aloof when she wants to be, and like she really, really cares when she wants to be. She just did such a good job, both of them did, that I really felt like I was watching this train wreck of a show in my mind as I was reading it. This one is, again, a dual narration. It's Ella Ray Smith and Benjamin Noble, and I love, love, love their voices. I cannot wait to get into Daisy Hates and see if I love the narration for their voices as much as I have loved the ones for Magnolia Parks. Next is a big one for me, and that is a book that I really feel like just like changed my brain chemistry, just rewrote pathways in my brain, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I don't need to say a lot about this book. It is a World War II historical fiction following two sisters and kind of showing how each one dealt with the Nazis occupying France at the time. One sister has a husband who's away at war and a child that she has to protect, and then another sister is very much more wanting to take more of a prominent role with pushing the Nazis out of France. This story is so incredibly raw and real and heartbreaking. Be prepared going into this knowing that, because, it got me. I've never openly cried so much at a book because I'm not a crier when it comes to books. I don't know why, I'm just not, but this one got me. This one really, really got me. It's a beautifully told story, and it's narrated by Julia Whelan, I think that's how you say her name, or Whelan, but she does such a good job. She does such a good job at really making you care about these characters and really setting the stage for this incredibly emotional story. So I battled with these three top spots, honestly, because I loved them so much. But at number 2 is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This was my first full cast narration on audio, and I think that might be why it had such an impact to me, but I really do feel like this entire cast did such an incredible job. In this book, we have 6 main points of view, which is a lot for a book, but Leigh Bardugo just does it so seamlessly. She just has this incredible storytelling way about the way that she writes. This is about 6 outcasts, some magical, some not, that come together to perform this heist for different reasons. This is in the Shadow and Bone world. I personally don't think you have to read Shadow and Bone before reading this. I didn't. Obviously, it would make the world a bit bigger, and some of the characters in Shadow and Bone are mentioned in this series, but I've just heard that Shadow and Bone is a lot more juvenile, and I don't know if I want to go backwards right now with where I'm at in my reading journey. So you guys will have to tell me if you think I need to go back and read it. But as far as Six of Crows, I'm obsessed. This is like one of my favorite books of all time. One of my favorite books of all time. Definitely one of my favorite books that I read this year. But I just loved all of the different voices and all the different perspectives in this book. And man, a full cast, incredible. I loved it. In the top spot is a new 5-star, 6-star series for me. I think about this audiobook so often. I think about this narrator's voice so often. And this is the first time that I've been so incredibly obsessed with a narrator that I've started to look up other books that she has narrated so that I can listen to her voice again and I can listen to her storytelling again. And that is the Belladonna series by Adeline Grace. I'm holding up Wisteria because I actually don't own Belladonna right now, but this entire series is so incredible. It is a gothic YA fantasy romance between a female main character who has had some really unfortunate things happen in her life, and she just so happens to be able to see Death himself personified. She's able to be in this limbo between the living and the dead, and from there on they go together to solve a mystery of why the people in her family keep dying around her. There's this really beautiful love story that's formed between herself and Death, and from there on we enter into other character stories like in Wisteria that you end up loving just as much as the original couple. The series is narrated by Kristen Atherton, and I just think that she's a genius. What she can do with her voice is genius. She is able to do Death's voice, and I swear I'm listening to a man. Like, the way that she does his voice in these softer, more haunting tones, I'm obsessed. Like, I can't even describe it to you enough, guys. It's so incredibly good. She is so talented, and I was just like feeling all the feelings while I'm listening to her voice. Truly, the way that she told this story was so breathtaking, and it made me love this story. And I can confidently say that because the first time I read Belladonna, I got about halfway through the book and I didn't care. I didn't care about the series. I really didn't. I don't know why. I just probably was the wrong time for me to be starting that series, but I didn't love the series. I put it down for 2 years and I kept hearing people say, this audiobook's amazing, this audiobook's amazing. So I decided around September to pick up the book in audio version, and I immediately was enthralled. That is the word that I have to use, is enthralled. I loved this series. And I really, other than Adeline Grace, obviously she has this amazing atmospheric way of telling the story, Kristen Atherton brought it to life for me. She really brought it to life for me, and I'm obsessed. I feel like this is going to be a story that I want to listen to over and over again for years to come. Before I close off this video for you guys, obviously I've just talked to you about my 10 favorite Holy Grail audiobooks, but I wanted to give an honorable mention as well to an author that hasn't made it to this list, but she was close because I do really enjoy her books, even though they're not like my favorite audiobooks of all time. I enjoy them. I know if I pick up one of her books and I listen to the audio, I'm going to enjoy it every single time. And that is Mariana Zapata. Only have one of her books physically, but I currently have read, I believe, 4 of her books right now, and 3 of them I listened to on audio, and now I'm just like hooked. Like I want to go back and listen to The Wall of Winnipeg and Me on audio, but I listened to All Roads Lead Here, Colty, and From Lukov with Love, and I loved all of those books on audio. She is really good about having duet narration. So even though her books are told completely from the female main character's point of view, we have a male main character who's voicing the men in this story, and I love it. Like, it's so interesting to listen to. It's so fun. She's obviously the queen of slow burn. Like, this is how much we're getting of our couple being together, and this is how much you're aching for it. And I love that. I just love that. So I really wanted to mention that because if you're looking for just like a good time or you want to listen to something on audio, I definitely recommend her books. That does bring us to the end of this video, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to me yap about my favorite audiobooks. Hopefully this will help you if you're looking to get into audiobooks or if you need a few other recommendations. I highly recommend all the ones that I have mentioned. If you have an audiobook that you have absolutely loved, please let me know in the comments below because I am always looking for more audiobooks. If you've made it to the end of this video, please leave me a headphones emoji. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love to have you stay around a while. We have some fun videos coming up, especially going into December. But I appreciate all of you for being here, and I will see you guys in my next video, hopefully. Bye!